Hello, everyone. My beautiful badasses out there. Welcome back to another week on the Powerhouse. And what we're bringing you today is going to be so much fun. And I guarantee you, it is not something that you have heard before on a career or business podcast at all on purpose. So we are continuing in our series on the power of you. And today I have another amazing badass with us. And we are talking about the power of your sexuality. Yes, we're going to be talking about sex today. So if you're listening today with the kiddos in the car, it's okay. If you let them listen, no judgment at all. But if you want to plug in your headphones right now, it's probably the good idea to do just that. So I am going to show you this. Yes, they are correlated. I promise you, this is something you're going to walk away with, something you've never even thought about for most of us, and so many amazing things. So with that being said, I'm going to dive straight in, and I can so excited to introduce you to Fanny. And I am not even going to try to pronounce her last name because I have a very shitty American education and I will butcher it. So
hi everyone, my name is Fanny Leboulanger. If you want to try that, that means the baker, if you feels better.
Fanny, thank you so much. There's no way I could have done that justice. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So I am French, as you may have guessed from the name. I am a pleasure and intimacy coach, and my passion is to help people, women and people, reclaim the thriving sex and fulfilling life they deserve.
Wonderful. That sounds like a very interesting line of work, Fanny. And I would love for people to understand your story, because this is not something that you've done right your entire life. You actually were on a much more traditional path as a woman before, and then you decided to really turn the tables, completely step out of anything the world says a woman should be, and talk about sex for a living. Tell us how this started.
It started, I am a family doctor practicing in France in my previous life. And I have a history of being so disconnected from my own power that my body actually shut my brain off, because I was diagnosed with epilepsy at age 26. Like, you know, when you've been a good girl all your life, doing the grace, doing the studies, and then you're like, have your teeth closed, like strange your teeth, it will get better, it will get better, it will get better. Didn't. So I got a diagnosis with that. That kind of sucked. So I had to do some digging and noticing that I was so numb that there was something going on that was not really healthy or anything. At the same time, I was like, okay, I have done already like 8 years, so I'm gonna finish. Thank you. And I finished med school. I had my practice. I'm working as an office substitute, like when people go on vacation, I'm replacing them. And what is true to my heart is working with women in gynecology. So I'm not a gynecologist, but I'm doing gynecology on a daily basis. And I was getting really sick of how I had no answers for my patients. I had people coming with pain like vulvodynia or vaginism or any medical conditions that we run the test and there was nothing wrong. And I was like, okay, it's not working. And I already had tried a lot of methods and things to reconnect to my body. Like, I'm a yoga teacher as well, and it worked perfectly. But you know, when you notice that there's still something missing. And I started digging for my patients and for myself. And I ran into that concept of sacred sexuality and Tantra. And I was like, this is the basis of what is wrong with their whole society, you know, like having women disconnected from their sexual power, which is literally the life creating force. Hey, we can use that also for something else than making babies. And I started doing that, diving into that. And then, you know what, family doctor, you're out. I'm becoming a sex coach.
Oh, Fanny, I love that. And I love that, how you shared, whenever you got this diagnosis, which I'm sure was just shattering at the moment, to be such a young age. And then to understand through your research of that and really looking at how you were living your life and realizing that a lot of that was contributed to not owning your power, right? To staying on a path that society says you should take, being the good girl, your words. And then it sounds like when you really started to say, wait a minute, society, is this what I really want to do? And you started claiming your power, it led you down this path of even so many other things. Which I think is amazing, right? Just to have that self-awareness, because most women go through their entire lives and they never get that aha moment, right? Or it takes, for many of us, a health scare, or, a nervous breakdown, or, divorce or a loss to really be like, what the fuck? What's going on?
Yeah.
So I think you sharing that, thank you for the vulnerability. But I'm curious to also know, like, most of us would not put two and two together of, hey, if you don't have like a really healthy relationship with your sexuality, or what is portrayed in all of these movies of just like a thriving sex life, right, in this very traditional way. But how did that show up for you in all other aspects of your life, and especially your career?
How did it show up in other aspects? I am convinced that what I usually say is that you cannot selectively numb ourselves. And us being disconnected from our sexual power is a way of numbing ourselves. And we're numbing ourselves from the most powerful source of anything we can have. That's why we end up being on autopilot, working and having our lives in gray, like 52 shades of gray, but not the sexy way. So there is all of that. And by reclaiming your sexual power, you're reconnecting to your body. So when you reconnect to your body, you notice you have a whole playground. You can do a lot of things in here. There are a lot of things that you can explore. And with that, it helps living a conscious life, but not in a intentional new agey thing, which is really interesting. But what I mean in conscious life is really being conscious of the moment, what is going at the moment, and what I can do with it. So with that, you're more aware of what's going on. And also being connected to your sexual power and using the power of sex magic, which I really like, really helps alchemize our conditioning, like bust out our conditioning, alchemizing, like eating shame for breakfast. If you want, you can have orgasms with your emotions. You can have anger gasms. You can have sadgasm. You can have food and smellgasm too. But I truly believe this connection to our sexuality helps us have the thriving and fulfilling life, because you're connecting to life in itself, and you're reclaiming the whole palette. So if you want, you if when you reconnect to your power, you can go after the job or the changing career or owning who you are. When you reconnect to your power, you can also be a better mom if you have a family, or a better parent, because you do it from a true place of empowerment, instead of doing it from a place of what society says you should, or you should do, or that is the norm. And most of all, I think when we reclaim our sexual power, we reclaim what we are as us. What you said about the movies, and I I say the movies, and also like the magazines, all this titles like, you want to improve your sex life, try X, Y, and Z. And owning your sexual power is actually acknowledging that you are unique in the most beautiful way. Your magic recipe for thriving sex is yours only, and you can work with it. So, yeah, that's a lot of rambling.
No, I mean, it's fascinating, right? I think, so many of us, I speak constantly about reclaiming the power. And I tell women in our programs, over and over again, that to never change anything about themselves, that there's nothing wrong with them, right? That this whole bullshit around, just use coercive power, just be a servant leader, just lean in, like those are all someone else's theories, someone else's box for you to fit in. And 9 times out of 10 were written by men for men.
Mm.
And so it sounds like the exact same concept and very much foundational of who you are as a sexual being, right? Something as natural as that and something that is a basic human need. Let's be honest. If you're watering that down, you're filtering that out, and you're not even owning who you are in that space, there's no way in hell you can show up as the powerful badass that you are in a boardroom, in a relationship, in a friendship, in anywhere in life.
Yeah. I always like to add something about that is how, as women, we have the only organ in the whole human species that has no other purpose than giving us pleasure, and that's the clitoris. Like the clitoris is way bigger than we expect, even if it's getting more and more mainstream, which is great. But like actually acknowledging that we're built to have pleasure. We have an organ that is the only thing it has to do or it wants to do it that. That has to mean something. And the best way to feel a real pleasure is orgasms and reconnection to your sexual power.
Oh, okay. So cool. And so, with women really reclaiming their power in general, right? There's so many aspects. We do that through finance, through work, through our personal board of directors, through our friendships, through our body image, like all these things that we're covering in this series. But with what you do specifically, I feel like a lot of women have, what you said earlier, a lot of shame, right? Eating shame for breakfast.
Yeah.
How can women today that are listening that are like, oh, this sounds pretty cool. Like it sounds something that, I is worth learning more about. How do they start with just breaking up with the whole idea that society has painted for us as women that one, if you enjoy sex, you're a slut, right? Or, sex should only be done in certain ways. Like, I feel like the generation after us are doing much better job than we are, those of us that are in our late 30s, our 40s, our 50s, and so on. Like we had a little bit different upbringing when it came to sex than the younger generation now. How can they start to break up with, like, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being single in your 50s and exploring sexuality then. There's nothing wrong with having, not being in a monogamous relationship, or there's everything incredible about being a monogamous relationship, whatever you're in. How can they start breaking up with the shame? Because I think that's what holds all of us back.
I love that you asked that question. Thank you, because usually it's really the first step is sometimes the hardest to make. And I offer to the person I work with a really simple exercise, because in my opinion, if you want to reconnect to your sexual power, you need to be reconnecting to your body. And this is like a virtuous circle. Like if you reconnect to your body, then you reclaim your sexual power, and then you have more connection to your body and more sexual power. The only thing is, how do I do that? And you can do that through self-pleasure. Amazing. And if you want to reclaim the power of self-pleasure, please do. We need more self-pleasure. And I also acknowledge that for many of us, it can be a tricky first step. And my favorite exercise to start with is breast massage, because it is reconnected to your sexual energy, but it's not as emotionally charged as what self-pleasuring can be. So there are like specific ways of doing different types of circles and everything, but just spending some time, if you want to start just with yourself, putting some oil and putting your hands on your breasts first. If you want, you can blow kisses on your hands. I like that. I feel silly when I do that, but it feels even way better to do that. Just put your hands on your breasts and then put them somewhere else and somewhere else, like explore, and just one moment to the next, start with that and see what's here. We could be very surprised how how we have so much stored into our breasts, and how that actually leans, in my opinion, to the second part of choosing to do this work, um, is be willing to feel it all. As we said at the beginning, we cannot numb ourselves out. So if you've been sitting on anger forever, you will need to feel it at some point. And the good thing is how to feel it without exploding to your whole world. And the willing to feel it, so the willing to go deeper, is the first step. But we also need to recognize, in my opinion, that we can have fun with it too. That was not the sentence I started. I'm sorry. It will come back. But yeah, honoring the fun part of this too, because we can be very serious about self-inquiry and self-development and how we want to change the world. And it's a really big and good thing we're doing. But also acknowledging that it can be fun too, because making us feel bad about ourselves hasn't worked until now. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it would work. Yeah, I would say body reconnection, starting with breast massage, self-pleasure if you want. Be willing to feel it all and be ready for a wild ride.
No, Fanny, thank you so much. So it sounds like, just if I'm hearing you correctly, that, breaking up with this whole idea of shame is one that is obviously, a notion that was produced by the patriarchy, just to keep women weak, right? Because our power is terrifying, right? For most men. And then, just that whole, just being self-aware, like there's nothing wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with everything, right, that you're talking about today. And by not embracing that and just being aware of it, and then trying something like this, just to see, like, who the hell are you? What do you like? What do you want to do? Right. Just harnessing your power alone in that sounds like it's something in a life practice that just snowballs in every other practice in your life. Right. Just saying, hey, this is nothing wrong with me. This is something I want. Right. And just going after that.
Yeah, definitely. And acknowledging as well that you're not broken. Like, whoever listens, that's the message I'm always sharing, that you are not broken. And also acknowledging that this can be a wild ride with peaks and valleys as well. When we've been sitting in our conditioning and our shame for like so much time, it's okay to decide, I'm done with that. And at the same time, sometimes cutting ourselves into, oops, I'm back here again. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's where the power of pleasure kicks in. That's why I'm so passionate about self-pleasure and everything, because pleasure is the ultimate alchemizer. Like, if you have a sensation that feels like the shame has a sensation into your body, if you bring that sensation, the pleasure there, then the sensation softens because it can be released. I won't go into the physiological neuro thing. It's amazing, but basically our bodies store every trauma and everything. And we need to feel those sensations, not the story, but the sensations, to release them. And what is helping us feeling them is building safety through pleasure, because our nervous system is like, okay, I can handle that. It's hard, but have something good as well. So I can handle that.
Oh, no, and that reminds me of something we were talking about earlier that was unique, and to be perfectly transparent to the audience, not something I heard before in the way you described it. And it was this concept around consent with yourself. Yeah. I would love if you can give a 50,000 foot overview of what you mean by that to the audience.
In my opinion, the self-consent is applying to yourself what is getting better and better into our relationships. Consent with others is getting the place it rightfully deserves, even if we still have a lot of work to do. But I considered at the beginning of my journey how I felt so numb. Just to give you a heads up, for a long time, I was only able to have orgasms from my partner. And I was like, okay, there's something wrong there. And when I started that journey, I noticed that I wasn't even able to know, to see inside if I was a yes or a no to a practice. And then when I did something, I had some thoughts about this. And I was like, no wonder so many of us have vaginism and pelvic pain if we're just inserting a tampon and just, oh, I'll do that every month, even if we have pelvic pain or anything. So all of this is disrespecting what I call self consent. And what I mean about that is being aware that you have the yes or the no or the maybe answer inside. So when you want to do any kind of sexual interaction, either with your others, but especially with yourself, when you start the journey, is okay, I want to work with my dildo today. I put it in the entrance of my vagina, and do I want this or not? And if you don't hear a clear yes, you don't do anything. We have this default mechanism that is, if I don't hear a no, then it's okay. And that's not the case either for true consent or consent with yourself. What I call self-consent is allowing you the space to listen to the yeses, the nos, and act accordingly. And surprisingly, or not, when you honor a no or a maybe, and when you ask more questions, all of a sudden the yes comes in really quickly, really quicker than when we expect. So yeah, self-consent is really when you engage into a pleasure practice with yourself, even like the breast massage we mentioned earlier. Like I put my hands on my breasts. Do I want to just put them here or move? Do I want to start moving or not? Allowing the answer from bubbling from inside, acknowledging that it can take some time, because if a child would have been told their whole life that be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, then they wouldn't come out and sing an opera. Like they would start with the whispering. So noticing that your body might need some time to just hear a whisper, and until you hear that whisper, you don't do anything. That's for me the true power of self-consent. You apply to yourself what you apply to others.
Oh, Fanny, I love that. And I love, you spoke to pretty much everything else that we've talked about this whole episode, right? It sounds like this is the whole concept around consent with yourself, and not beating yourself up if you're not full blown, like this makes perfect sense and you're, running a mile a minute, or if it feels a little awkward right at first. When I think anytime you start reclaiming your power in any aspect of your life, it's going to feel weird, right? The first time that you got on a bike, you looked really stupid, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just the whole concept. But if this is something that you want to do, right, of continuing in that practice, no matter where it is. I mean, it sounds very much, ridding yourself, just overview, ridding yourself of what you should and shouldn't do as a woman. Fuck that. Reclaim the power in any way that you feel that you need to be powerful. And then two, from there, like just trying something out, just practicing, right?
Yeah.
We do this all the time, here at PowHER. Like the first time that, if you've never negotiated a job offer before, and the first time you do it, it's going to feel a little weird. That's okay. Yeah. Right. But the difference is claiming your power and getting back to who you are authentically. And I love, Fanny, how you're bringing this into a world in a way that is still, unfortunately, so taboo, right, for women to speak about. And even like right now, like legitimately, we're talking about sex on a business podcast, right? Yeah. Like total mind blown for so many people. But it's like, why the fuck not? Right. I mean, this is about, what here at PowHER, bringing power for women in every aspect of their life, right? Because it personal and professional, there is no line, right? It's always blending over. It's always whatever you're not showing up, claiming your power at home, it's going to show up at work and vice versa.
I always say that if you want a fulfilling life, you need thriving sex. This is the fastest source of power, like the best, the one that is almost insatiable. So yeah, definitely. I do want to add something. About how everyone is on the journey to power, because sometimes it can feel really hard to just jump to I am owning that. And what I often offer to the person I work with is start with tolerance. Like if it's hard accepting yourself, just say, hey, I'm going to hold space for you. That's just what we discussed in the self-consent. Like, I'm just on a space for you to process things. If for now, loving yourself, falling in love with yourself, owning your badass side and owning you have it, and trust me, I'm sure you have it 100%. If owning that is challenging in the moment, just the first step would be stop hating ourselves. Just saying, hey, I'm okay. Start with tolerance. And then with tolerance, you could, hey, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm crushing it. I'm way empowered, badass. Allowing your pace too. There's nothing wrong with you wherever you are on that journey.
Oh, love, 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 Fanny. I know we're wrapping up now. So where can folks go to learn more about this extremely powerful work that you're doing?
I have my own podcast that is called Your Sexified Life, where I'm passionate about sharing tips and tricks about how to help you reclaim the thriving sex and fulfilling like you deserve, because it looks like what you want. I also have my website that is yoursexifiedlife.com. And if you want, I have a baby Instagram because I'm still navigating the social media thing. I'm pretty new to that. It's at with Dr. Fanny. And I would love to hear you from there. I always love to finish any kind of interview I do or any type of moment where I share this work I'm passionate about is saying, you're not broken. Nobody's broken. This is a twisted game and we're here to change it. You're not broken.
Oh, love, love, love. Thank you again so much, Fanny. Such a pleasure today. And for everybody tuning in, make sure you subscribe. We're going to continue with this series on the power of you. So just like today, we're going to be bringing more and more ways that you probably haven't thought of to reclaim the powerful badass you are.